Hello, and welcome to Wrestling with Poetry, Kalamazoo, Michigan's premier wrestling and poetry podcast. Today, poet Gregory Glenn and part 2 of The River of Dead Wrestlers. First, Gregory. Gregory Glenn is a writer and performer based in Massachusetts. His work can be found in Soundings East, Drunk Monkeys, Poetry Soup, Molecule, Tiny Lit, Hard Work of Hope, and he is one of 5 poets published in the anthology 9x5 that's out on 2022 Only Human Press. He has most recently been featured on WGBH's Outspoken Saturdays, Mass Poetry's U35, and Nightlight Poetry and Performance Anxiety. His website is unpopularwriter.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Gregory. Thank you very much, Ish, for having me on this show. It means an awful lot. I've been very excited about this. I am a huge mark. I am a big pro wrestling fan. I always have been a big pro wrestling fan. And one of my favorite elements in pro wrestling is the art of cutting a promo. And for those of you who may not know, cutting a promo is when a wrestler or manager or personality sort of monologues. And they do this to get themselves over with an audience, build up a match, talk shit about their opponent. And I'm not a pro wrestler, but I have a pretty extensive performance background, acting, comedy, and of course poetry. And so that element, talking, character work, has always really appealed to me. And listening to people in the business of pro wrestling talking about promos, one piece of advice I've heard a lot of the best give is to practice every day, cutting a promo in front of the mirror. Watch yourself, listen to yourself, which I think is good advice for anybody who's in some sort of works in some sort of performance capacity. Is gives you an opportunity to really observe yourself while you're at work, so to speak. And I live inside of my head. I'm also an external processor, and so I'm always talking to myself out loud, rambling, thinking out loud. And I had a professor, J.D. Scrimger, who was, or sort of is, a mentor and one of my favorite poets and a friend to whom I owe an awful lot. He had an exercise in his class where he would have the class go off, walk around campus, and write a poem in their head, come back and write it down. And that exercise, I think, really helped me hone this habit of mine, talking out loud, into a writing skill. And I think the bigger part of my writing process doesn't usually involve physically writing something. A lot of what I write, for the most part, I've already composed in my head, and then I just write it down later and edit it. And given that I'm kind of a ditz and a burnout on top of that, I guess this is one of the few things I can do to keep my brain a little sharp. But, you know, the way I think of it is a poem is kind of like cutting a promo. The writer, the speaker is, you know, rapping about an idea, a concept, or an image that they're trying to get over with their audience. Or similarly, you know, pattern between poems is another way of communicating with your audience and getting an idea over, preface a poem, sort of set the stage a little bit and really let your audience know a little bit of who you are. I think that's a really important part of the art of poetry, just the same as you would see it as an important part of pro wrestling. 2 things I love very much. So thank you for listening to that, and thank you for listening to this. This is a poem called Letting Each Other Go. It's got Chris in it, it's got Jeff in it, and it's got a family that lives a few blocks up the street from me, but with the power of poetic license, I have turned them into my neighbors. Letting each other go. There is a family that lives up the street from me in a green house. I know them only because almost every time I walk past their house, the mother and the father, or the mother or the father, somebody lets me go. Or sometimes I let them go, depending on traffic. And I smile and wave thank you. And when they see this, they smile and wave a little more. And I like that. But then it feels kind of sad because that's it, it's over. And in my imagination, this excitement is fertile ground for some kind of more situation relationship. I want us both to think, oh, they're nice. But they have a child, children, so they probably don't think of me beyond this point, if they even remember or recognize me when I show up at their driveway at all. My two brothers and I have birthdays a few days apart, the 13th, 15th, and 18th. But they have Aries moons, and I have the compulsion to nurture this kind of Santa Clausian myth of kindness in the world that they don't believe in, I don't think. And I tell them about it, how I have seen it, how it's happened to me or in front of me. They must hate it when I talk about it in that sing-song pitch between I don't know and I told you so. It is like Santa Claus and its balance between you have to see it to believe it and you have to believe it to see it. This shadowy benevolence operating just outside of their periphery, it is like Santa Claus in that way. It is like Santa Claus in that a number of people, adults and children, are working together to construct, to maintain, to emphasize this phenomenon. It is like Santa Claus because, at a certain point, its value has overwhelmed our effort. Who knows? Maybe it's because I'm a child of divorce, and this has manifested itself in my desire for everyone to feel liked. I will never be liked, and so this is the least I can do, and the most I can hope for as everyone's common enemy. I haven't told my brothers about this family in the green house because it seems too small, too personal to be significant. Those are your neighbors, I can hear my brothers say. Of course they're nice. They know you. But the truth is that this family doesn't know me, not at all. And they're not even my neighbors, really, and I can't tell them. I just can't bring myself to say it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. That was fantastic. Letting each other go. Yes, let's let each other go. Today, the river of prematurely dead wrestlers. Sarah Lee died in 2022. They were 30. Cause of death, suicide by alcohol, poisoning, and pills. Pierre Lefebvre died at 30 in 1985 in a car wreck. Rick McGraw died in 1985 at the age of 30 of a heart attack. Giant Okiai died in 2003 at the age of 30 from a subdural hematoma. Johnny Perry died in 2002 at the age of 30 of a heart attack. Larry Sweeney, also known as Alexander Wybrow, died in 2011. They were 30. Cause of death, suicide by hanging. Jay Youngblood died in 1985 at the age of 30 from a heart attack. Ed Gantner died in 1990 at the age of 31, suicide by gunshot. Gene Lipscomb died in 1963. They were 31, cause of death, drug overdose. Scott Peterson died in 1994 at the age of 31, cause of death, motorcycle accident. Kazuharu Sonodo died in 1987. They were 31 years old, and the cause of death was a plane crash. They were on South African Airways Flight 295. Frank Spear died in 1938. They were 31 years old, and the cause was bronchial pneumonia. Sorikichi Matsuda died at the age of 31 or 32 in 1891 of tuberculosis. Adam Firestorm died in 2009. They were 32 years old, and the cause of death was suicide. Crash Holly, a.k.a. Mike Lockwood, was 32 in 2003 when he died of suicide by drug overdose and alcohol poisoning. Bill McCrary died in 1979 at the age of 32 years old of a motorcycle accident. Buzz Sawyer, a.k.a. Bruce Woyen, died in 1992 at the age of 32 from a cocaine-induced heart attack. Frank Townsend was 32 when he died in 1965. Cause of death, drowning in a boat accident. He's considered a missing person. Chris Travers was 32 years old when he died in 2016 of stomach cancer. Karsten Beck, also known as Karsten Pitan, died in 2020. They were 33 years old and the cause of death was brain cancer. Jim Browning was 33 years old in 1936 when he died of a pulmonary embolism. Chris Candino was 33 years old when he died of acute pneumonia in 2005. Eddie Gilbert, also known as Thomas Edward Gilbert Jr., was 33 years old in 1995 when he died of a heart attack. Paul E. Normus, also known as Paul Foix, died in 2009. They were 33 years old, and the cause of death was a drug overdose. Michel Martel, also known as Michel Vigneault, died in 1978. They were 33 years old. The cause of death was heart attack after a match. Moondog Mayne, also known as Ronald Mayne, died in 1978 at the age of 33 in a car wreck. Gran Naniwa, also known as Yoshikuni Kimura, was 33 years old when they died in 2010 of a heart attack. Jose Aran Alvarado Nieves was 33 in 1999 when they died of an infection. DJ Peterson, also known as David Peterson, died in 1993. They were 33 years old. Cause of death, motorcycle accident. The Renegade, Rick Wilson, died in 1999 at the age of 33 from suicide by gunshot. Neil Superior, also known as Neil Carey Cuff, was 33 when they died in 1996. Cause of death, confrontation with police. Test, also known as Andrew Martin, died in the year 2009. They were 33 years old. The cause of death was drug overdose. Carrie Von Erich, also known as Carrie Adkisson, died in 1993. They were 33 years old and the cause of death was suicide by gunshot. Damian Steele, also known as Damien Dotard, was 33 or 34 when they died in 2009 of a brain aneurysm. We say farewell and we wish these people peace. Take a minute, readjust. Events. Sunday, March 17th, 2024, Independence Pro Wrestling will be performing in Grand Rapids. This will be at the Patterson Ice Center in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Doors open at 5 p.m. The match begins at 6 p.m. and it costs money, so prepare yourself for that. The event is called Tough Luck in honor of St. Patrick's Day. Poetry events. The Rose Street Poetry Club meets at the Kalamazoo Central Library on Saturday, March 9th. From 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., it takes place in the boardroom. If you don't know where the boardroom is, ask at the information desk. There's one on each floor, and the information desk is near the stairs when you walk in. Well, that's it for Wrestling with Poetry this time around. Spring is in the air. There's a lot of decay and renewal. Got any questions about what you've heard today? Well, why don't you ask them while you can? We're not going to be around forever answering questions. We'll be around for maybe about another month. So if you got a question that you want answered by me, wrestlingwithpoetry@gmail.com, and I will certainly answer your question. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Gregory Glenn. Wonderful work. I feel happy that I was able to share it with more people. Everybody have a good day.